So let's kick off this with gaslighting. Gaslighting is one of the biggest manipulation tactics that narcissists use. All narcissists use it, whether they're covert, whether they're grandiose, whether they're the overt kind, whether they are the malignant kind. All narcissists use gaslighting to manipulate you. I'm Rebecca Zung. I've been recognized by US News as one of the top 1% of attorneys in the country. I've also written a best-selling book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And when I was doing my research, I saw that gaslighting is one of the most insidious types of tactics that narcissists use to doubt your reality and help. And it makes you doubt your perceptions and even your sanity. They might say things like, you're too sensitive, you're overreacting. This actually came from a movie in the 1930s, but I think it was even a play as well, where the husband was actually blowing out gas lights and saying to the wife, and the wife would say, wasn't that just lit? And the wife would say, wasn't that just lit? And the husband would say, no, it wasn't. And like literally was making her doubt her reality. And that's what it is. There has a huge psychological impact. So another example of that would be, where a husband is saying, I'm going away with my friends, for the weekend. And the wife would say, that's the weekend of our anniversary. And the husband would then realize, oh, I totally screwed that up. And so realizing that, he would turn around and say, oh, well, we talked about that and you agreed. Don't you remember? Because he's, just trying to cover his tracks. And she would be like, we never had that conversation. Oh, yeah, we talked about that and you agreed. I mean, that's the kind of thing that they do to just try to cover themselves. They just quickly on their feet push it back on the other person so that they to try to make them think they're crazy. They're really, really good at that sort of thing. And it's a very subtle art form, but they're excellent at that. Oh, you didn't let me finish my sentence. I was just about to say blah, blah, blah. And, that's another very typical kind of thing that they'll do, just to make you think you're the one who's crazy, to kind of change their story all the time. I always say it's sort of like trying to catch a fish, trying to hold on to it, but it always sort of slips out of your hand, right? Because you can never quite grasp them. So it's a very, very difficult art to grasp, but they're excellent at it. It's like they're artists in a way, but it's designed to make you think you're crazy. But it's knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Once you start to see it, once you can look at it and you can step back and start to see them almost like they're a third party, just start to think of it as reporting the news, or I start to say like they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor, just, almost like you're holding a microphone and you're just looking at them and go, oh, I see that this is happening now. Knowledge is power, right? And I'm here to empower you. So, that's why I wrote my book. And that's why I'm here giving you free resources every single day, because I want you to take your power back and see that authentic, true, higher self that lives within you, the one that God, your higher self, created you to be. Or, if you don't believe in God, just know that there's a higher self within you. I mean, but I believe that there is a higher power that created you and that lives within you. All right. So just know that's, I believe, why you're here. And that you were created for more. That. So the next one is another way that they train you to be suppressed is undermining your achievements. Well, that's pretty good, but I mean, other people have done better. Sure. Or I helped you. I helped you get where you are. I mean, anyone could have done that. I mean, I had a bigger role in helping you. Well, that's, not that great of a thing. I mean, what are you doing? You're just doing some crafts, or you're just whatever. I mean, like they'll belittle whatever it is that you're doing. They don't make it like it's that big of a deal. He went to jail once, or whatever it is. I mean, they'll look at whatever it is that you're doing and find some way to belittle it in some way. Okay. So understanding how they undermine you and your achievements empowers you. Let it be your power. Use that. Turn around and say, you know what? Say underneath your breath, you know what, buddy? I haven't even started yet. You see that? It's just the beginning. Resist the suppression. Know that it comes from their jealousy. Their opinion doesn't matter. Take the opinions of people who matter. Rumi said, set the world on fire, seek those who fan your flames. Look for people who are going to throw logs on your fire, not throw water on it. The next thing they do is they isolate you from support. They say, oh, no one else loves you. Only I do. That your family members, they think you're crazy. That person, they don't really care about you. Oh, you're better off without them. Recognizing that type of tactic, it's crucial, because you need to maintain a support system and resist being isolated. Go do things with friends. Go join book clubs or whatever it is. And by the way, I have a support group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. It's a huge support group, and make sure you check that out. And also, I have phrases for disarming narcissists, for effectively disarming narcissists, disarmthenarc.com. Links to both are in the description below. Make sure that you grab the Disarm the Narc phrases and join my Facebook group as well, because you're going to want to do that. And I would love to know which of these suppression tactics you've experienced the most. Let's start a conversation. The next one, number 4, is controlling your narrative. Controlling your narrative. They're masters of controlling your narrative. They control the story. They rewrite history. They suit their agenda. They might say things like, that's not what happened. You're remembering it wrong, right? Have you heard that before? That's not what happened. Oh, you're crazy. You're out of, you're out of whack, right? Reclaim your truth. You know what happened. Keep a journal if you need to. Tonight, this is what happened. Recount it. Put it in your phone. Resist the narrative that they impose. Resist. Next thing is they create dependency on them. It's another way they train you to suppress. You can't do this without me. You need me to succeed, right? What would you do without me? Understanding this tactic empowers you to build your independence. You don't need them to succeed. You're here. You can have a conversation. You can go out and do things. Anything you can conceive, believe, anything you set your mind to. I went to law school with 3 little kids as a single mom in my 20s, 100% on student loans. I did it all on my own. You can too. All right? Build your independence. Resist reliance on that narcissist. The next thing they do, number 6, is withhold affection. They use affection as a tool for control, even sex, by the way. They withhold love. They withhold approval. They withhold sex. It makes you compliant. It's a way of saying, you know what? You don't deserve my love right now. It's a way of saying, you know what? You come to me. You need to earn it. You earn being in their space. It makes you work harder. And for people who've had their own trauma, you're like, I'll be the good girl, I'll be the good boy, I'll be the good one. You'll see how good I am, and it's a way for you to feel like if you're a pleaser, that's how that symbiotic relationship starts. And recognizing this allows you to start to see it. Then you can start to create healthy boundaries. That's step one. Don't run, create that boundary, start to see it. That invisible shield comes down, and you can step back and say, you know what? I deserve respect. You condition people on how to treat you. You tell people how to treat you. And yeah, they're going to be unhappy about it at the beginning, but you can take baby steps with it. You can start by saying, you know what? I can see that you're angry. I can see that you're upset, but we can continue this conversation when you're ready to be calm. And that's okay. Resist that emotional manipulation. So those are 6 ways that narcissists train you to suppress your emotions, suppress who you are. And the true self that's in you, the higher self that's in you, the authentic self that's in you is saying, you know what? Your soul self is saying, you know what? It's time to come out. It's time for you to blossom. It's time to be who you are meant to be. And that self is the self that can help others. That's the self that can actually be of service to others. That's the self that once you heal can turn around and actually be who you're meant to be. And you know that you were meant to be more. You know that because that's why you're here. You know that you're saying, wait a minute, I know I was meant for more. I was meant for more in the world. I know it's kind of crazy, but there's actually a way that narcissists use positivity to gaslight you. And I didn't know this either, but there's actually a toxic type of positivity that is sort of backhanded, and it makes you end up feeling bad about yourself. And it is a form of gaslighting, but it's very, very hidden. And it's, even though it seems like it's a good thing, it's coming out of their mouth, and it seems like a positive statement, it still invalidates you. So when you hear it, it doesn't make you feel better. And I know I've seen this because I have a friend who actually has, she's had to grieve the loss of a child, which was absolutely awful. She's one of my dearest friends. And she actually has talked about this with me at length. And so I've been, made familiar with it because of that. But other than that, I wouldn't have known about it or come to be familiarized with it. So, hi, I'm Rebecca Zung, and I am a globally recognized narcissist, negotiation expert, high conflict communications expert, attorney, and the author of a best-selling book, Slay the Bully: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And in my book, I talk about gaslighting. And gaslighting is when your feelings are being invalidated, when what you're seeing isn't what you're seeing, what you're feeling isn't what you're feeling, what you're hearing isn't what you're hearing. It's when you are being made to feel like you're crazy, when you basically are being made to feel invisible, when you are being marginalized in some way. Yeah, but it's really worse than that. It's when you're really feeling like you're actually going crazy. And so the impact of it is that you start to feel voiceless, that you start to feel like you can't speak up. And I know for me, because of, things that I've had to work through in my past, when I've been in toxic relationships, I tend to have what becomes known as leaky boundaries, where you end up allowing things to happen that you shouldn't allow to happen. And you don't end up speaking up when you should. You end up just, I'm just going to go along to get along because I don't want to end up having to deal with it. It's just easier for me to just do the things I shouldn't end up doing, or not saying anything when I should say something, because I don't want to have to deal with somebody being mad at me. I don't want to have to deal with, the thing. But that's one aspect of it. But this is something completely different. Toxic positivity shows up in a different way. And that's why it's so kind of backhanded. How this ends up showing up is more manipulative, quite frankly. But it's again backhanded. It's again a way to downplay your experiences, again, a way to maintain control. It's a seemingly positive phrase that makes you feel, if you're not aware of what's happening, like you don't matter. So, for example, you are down about something and you're upset about something and you're sharing your feelings. I'm upset. I'm sad. I am angry. And you're, instead of sitting in that with you and saying, I can see that. I can see why you would be upset about that. And, and hey, you don't want somebody to sit in that with you forever, but you at least want to say, you want somebody who's going to be supportive and say, I can see, how that would be upsetting to you. And I can get that. I can get how, I can feel that. I can feel that with you and sit in there with you for a little bit. And, I get why that would be something that would be, upsetting. If somebody has been emotionally abusive or whatever it is. But what this is somebody who just says, just be positive. Just be positive. I don't know why you're focusing on that. Just be positive. And instead of giving any sort of validation or acknowledgement of that emotion to that person, they don't give any acknowledgement to it at all. They say, just be positive. Let's just, move on. And what that does is, and yeah, while it seems harmless to some extent, it also silences you, and it doesn't validate you at all. It doesn't allow you to have any space there. And it gaslights you into sort of making you feel like your feelings are unwarranted in some way. And it's crucial to understand that sort of subtle manipulation. It's a subtle sort of manipulation. So it's sort of another one that they might do is sort of when you want to talk about something that might have happened with the relationship, and you're not trying to dwell on the relationship, this is, and there's a sort of a fine line between you kind of making them stew and holding their head to the fire all the time, and also holding them accountable, right? But if you're truly just saying, hey, I want you to be held accountable, and I want you to apologize to me and validate me, and then they just say, you know what, why are you bringing that up now? Why can't we just look at the future and let's just let the past be the past and let's just move on? Because that's another thing that a narcissist will do. Let's just let the future be the future. Let's just be positive. Let's just look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. That's another thing that they might say. An uplifting phrase that seems positive. Look on the bright side. It's an uplifting tool. It appears positive, right? It's a tool for gaslighting sometimes. They divert attention away from the real issues. And it makes it challenging for you to address core problems. Why are you focusing on the negative all the time? Let's just look on the bright side, because it doesn't allow you to have your feelings. Another one that they might say is good vibes only. Good vibes only. That's just great. But if it's being used to suppress any concerns that you might have, it's great. Okay. But then when they might have concerns, what happened to good vibes only? What happened to look on the bright side? Well, that's only, if it's one-sided a lot of times, right? So you got to look and see what's happening there. Understanding and recognizing when this might be happening is a really, really important step to reclaiming your sense of well-being and really being able to take a step back and take a step at understanding that this is a form of gaslighting, that it's toxic positivity, because it's a form of invalidating you and invalidating your concerns and invalidating that you matter as a human being. And it's a form of diversion. It's a form of diversion away from the true issue, which is maybe, again, getting them to take responsibility for their actions, right? And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you do that now, because we do give tips and resources on this sort of thing on a regular basis. So make sure you do that now, because I want you to have the help and support that you need. And to that same vein, we have a supportive community, which you can join, which is my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators. And if you need phrases for disarming narcissists, I have those too. Disarmthenarc.com, disarmthenarc.com. You can get that as well, disarmthenarc.com. And so make sure you grab those free phrases for disarming narcissists to help you, something that you can use, tips and tricks, a resource that you have at your fingertips also. So, it's good to have positivity, of course, and certainly you don't want to be a person who's sitting in the mud and in the doldrums, or, being negative all the time. But, you also don't want to be having your feelings invalidated. Like another one that I've heard people say to people, especially, somebody who's lost somebody, is everything happens for a reason, and of course, this is, sometimes it's people that just don't know what to say. Sometimes people just say this without realizing what they're saying. But sometimes narcissists use it again to dismiss your pain and struggles. And sometimes they use it as a weapon to manipulate. So you just have to understand, is it somebody who's really trying to be harmless, or is it somebody who's trying to invalidate you, invalidate your feelings, invalidate what's happening, right? And I would love to know what you guys have seen, what kinds of toxic positivity you might have experienced as well. Let me know in the comments. Just throw a comment below. Oh my God, I've seen it. And, oh, I didn't even know that this existed, or I did. What kinds of other toxic positivity comments you guys have seen as well? Let me know in the comments. Let's get a conversation going about this. And, I want to know what your experiences have been. And by the way, if you have experienced this and you know others who have experienced this too, make sure you like this video. Make sure you share it with others, share it with others in your community, because we want to make sure that we shut this down. We don't, this is something I didn't know that much about myself. And I want to stop this. I don't want this to keep perpetuating. That's why I have this channel. That's why I'm not stopping with what I'm doing. I know I'm one of the few lawyers who are out there who is doing this. That's why I wrote my book. That's why I have my SLAY programs. That's why I have my certification program. My certification program is certifying master high conflict coaches daily. All the time we're graduating brand new coaches who are out there helping people. And so, if you're interested, you want to join us, you want to join the ranks, come join us, because we are actively out there helping. And I'm so glad that you were here. How we can spot the super sneaky manipulative tactics of highly toxic people and how they hijack your mind without you even knowing it. Insidious tactics that they use, right, to hijack your mind. One of the things that they do, really the main thing I want to talk about, is pattern interruption and many different forms of pattern interruption. And the problem with pattern interruption is that you never get to think. You never get to think straight. And what is pattern interruption exactly? And what it is it disrupts your established pattern of thinking. You start to think, you start to have a thought process, and you want to be able to get your thoughts going, and they don't let you. It's almost like a mental speed bump. You're going, you're moving, and then they stop you. And there are many different ways that they stop you. Obviously, just interrupting you in general, interrupting your talking, and they go, no, that's not it. So, of course, that's a way of interrupting you. And it's almost like behavioral traffic, just stopping you and making you stop, right? Of course, that makes you stop. But when you're dealing with toxic personalities, pattern interruption can be used in a number of different ways, creating something that we call cognitive dissonance. And it throws you off track. And it's about taking control of the conversation. It's about setting boundaries. It's about taking control of your mind and throwing you off balance. And when this happens to you over and over and over again, it actually is a form of gaslighting. And it's basically being told your feelings aren't valid, your perceptions aren't valid, and your viewpoint isn't valid. And it's really an overall attack on you. It can happen over and over and over again, so that you lose your footing, you lose your ground, and it can happen in a number of different ways. And what I want to explain to you about this over time is cognitive dissonance is something that can actually over time be a phenomenon. And I want to explain what that is. It can make you feel utterly confused over time, so that you no longer even trust your own mind. After a while, you actually feel like your own mind is distorted after a while, so that you now are starting to trust that other person's mind more than your own. And you start to not even trust your own senses after a while, and perceive that maybe you are correct. I don't know. And it's utterly traumatic. So that when you are going to negotiate, and you go stand or sit at the negotiation table, you are not sitting at a table where you feel equal to the other person. So very few people understand the impact that narcissists have on the people around them. The majority of people see two people sitting at a table, and they don't understand that the person who's sitting across from that other person really may not be mentally strong. The other problem with it is that the other psychological trauma that can be caused is something that we call CPTSD, which is something I think is even potentially worse than PTSD. PTSD is something that happens as a result of one incident, such as war or an accident or something like that. CPTSD is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is something that happens over time as a result of repeated trauma. And it could be, years that this has happened with a person, especially if you've been in a longer term relationship with a highly toxic person, even if it's a professional relationship, by the way. So people who have CPTSD can experience difficulty with sleep, flashbacks, problems with emotional regulation, impairment in alertness, and have difficulty even performing regular daily tasks if you're re-experiencing issues with that trauma. You can have sometimes problems with migraines, feeling hopeless. It can definitely impact your mental acuity as well. There are definitely issues with problems with this constant issues with this pattern interruption. Now, let me talk about the way that pattern interruption can take place. Pattern interruption can take place in a number of different ways. So you're starting to have your thought, you're starting to talk, and the person will come along and they'll say, why are you bringing that up now? And you're like, well, when would be a good time to bring that up? You're starting to have another thought and they'll say, you just literally interrupted me. They'll accuse you of doing the interrupting. And you're like, I didn't interrupt you. And then you start to have the thought again, and they'll say, now you're raising your voice. I didn't raise my voice. And again, you try to have the conversation, and they're off topic. You never get to have a word in. They're constantly trying to figure out ways you don't get to have your thought. By the way, another way that they'll have pattern interruption is by saying something good. Sometimes you see narcissists, and I've seen this in a professional setting too, where I've, as an attorney, been trying to make a point to another attorney, and they'll just interrupt me and say, you look really nice today, by the way. Just to throw me off my game, or just be a jerk, just to interrupt what I'm saying. It looks like on the surface they're giving me a compliment, but what they're doing is trying to throw me off my game, trying to make a point that they're not really listening, disrupting my thought. And that's what they do, trying to get you to lose your footing, trying to get you to be confused, interrupt what you're saying, invalidate your feelings. And it's not okay. So, and if you agree with me, put not okay in the comments. And by the way, if you are negotiating with a narcissist or somebody narcissistic, make sure you grab my free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet at winmynegotiation.com. It's a free 15-page ebook, winmynegotiation.com. And if you need additional support, go to my free Facebook group at Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And I do have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp, which you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung to get that help. It is a sponsor on this channel, which means we receive commissions. We have vetted them. It only recommends services that we trust, doesn't cost you any extra, right? But remember that pattern interruption is effective because it helps them gain control and shift that dynamic. And it disrupts your thinking. It helps that toxic person allow them to gain control. Then they can interject their narrative, and it forces you to be off your game. And then they come in and say whatever it is that they want to say. It shifts their paradigm and puts you in a position of defense. So remember, the key is to stand firm, stay in your game, stay in your power, and say, listen, we don't have to have this conversation. If you're going to continue to interrupt me, then we can wait until you're ready to have a conversation where you're not going to interrupt me. Stay firm, set your boundaries. You can just say, we can talk later when you're ready to have a conversation with me, when you're not going to interrupt me, that sort of thing. And I have another video on where narcissists are trying to desperately regain control. It's called 5 Telltale Signs of a Narcissist's Desperate Last Bid to Regain Control, which you can definitely check that out. I highly recommend that you do. But if you're dealing with a toxic personality, learning these tools are incredibly empowering. Regain your boundaries, stand firm, and make sure that you do. And I definitely recommend that you get my book, slaythebully.com, join my launch team, because I delve into all of that there. So make sure that you do that too. Remember that today is a great day to start negotiating your best life. Okay, so I want to go into how Jada has been narcissistically manipulating and abusing Will Smith. And the reason why I want to do this is because this is a classic example of a relationship of narcissists, so that all of you guys who are in relationships like this can see how this plays out for yourselves and maybe potentially recognize this in yourselves. And then I'm going to give you ways that you can actually fight back and actually shift the dynamic for yourselves. Okay. So I did actually do a video on why I think that Will should actually divorce Jada now. You can definitely go back and check that out if you'd like, and why I think he should definitely get out now. But let me go into now a little bit more of the specific signs that I see that she's been manipulating him all along. And I'm saving the best one till the end. So you want to definitely wait and check that out. Okay. So as you all know, there was a slap heard around the world, seen around the world at Oscar night. He allegedly is defending her honor, because Chris Rock says something about her bald head and she's upset about it. And he has to defend her honor and goes up, slaps Chris Rock, and then even, yells obscenities at Chris. As we all know, he was laughing before that. She gives him this massive look. And I also did a video on the fact that I believe that he was triggered because his father had been beating his mother when he was a child. He was triggered about the fact that he always felt like he never properly defended his mother, even though obviously that's a unfounded sort of a thing, because he was like 5, 6 years old. He shouldn't feel like he could defend his mother at that age, but he always felt like he didn't defend his mom. He didn't protect his mom. And Jada knew that. But anyway, she gives him this look. He feels triggered. Oh, I didn't defend her. He goes up and does this thing. But there's even more layers to that, because there was this whole issue about the fact that they had this open marriage. And he's now worried about the fact that, oh, if I don't do something, then what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Is she going to cheat on me again? Is she going to do something? There's always that fear of what is she going to do? But it's even worse than that, because if you go back to the history of how that open marriage even came to pass. It came to pass because before the 40th birthday, he starts planning her 40th birthday when she's 37. So 3 years before she turns 40, he's like trying so hard to make her happy. What can I do to make her happy? What can I do to finally make her happy? And he's planning this thing for years and years and years. And he unveils this footage of her grandmother, and he's got like this 3-day party planned. And that night he unveils this thing, and she's like not even happy about it. That night she says, cancel the whole plans for the next day, like basically humiliates him at her 40th birthday, says, I don't even want the next day's plans. I don't want it. I don't want it. Makes him feel like the whole party is about his ego, not about her. He ends up believing that, and they have this massive, huge blowout fight. That's what causes the big, huge rift. They say they need time apart. She asks for an open marriage at that time. He doesn't want it. He never wanted an open marriage. That's when she pulls the open marriage card. That's when she has this huge affair or whatever it is with this August Alsina rapper dude. She ends up admitting that she's having this affair. They end up going on Red Table Talk. He's humiliated in front of the world on Red Table Talk, endures her talking about it, humiliated for minutes, while she goes on and on about how she just wanted to feel good.
I just wanted to feel good. Mm-hmm. It had been so long since I felt good.
That's what it is that she said. I just wanted to feel good. And if you see his face, you could tell he's like pained. When you look at his face, he's in pain. And if you read his book, I mean, he puts women on a pedestal, and maybe he's a narcissist too. I don't know. But if he is, he's a very codependent narcissist who can't be alone because, you know, he's very, very dependent on her. But since this whole Oscar thing has come out, it has been revealed that on her TikTok 2 days before the Oscars, she said, I don't give two craps about this bald head. So she said that.
Today, I don't give two craps what people feel about this bald head of mine, because guess what? I love it.
She's also totally not supported him with this whole thing in the sense that she said, I don't need defending. She basically has completely not supported him. And she also was saying, you know, this is a season for healing. I'm here for it. Basically saying he needs healing. I'm not in this at all. Again, separating herself from him. I mean, she really is, again, gaslighting. Oh, and by the way, with this whole Red Table Talk thing, she gaslights him into thinking, like, defending her cheating and saying, basically, it's his fault. I wanted to feel good. It's your fault. You made me feel this way. It's about him, his ego. He caused it. And he starts believing it. He believes that he caused her pain, and she gets him to feel that way. And so it's this constant gaslighting where she spins herself into she's the victim. But then again, she also says, but I don't need protecting. I'm a victim, but I don't need protecting. But yet, if you love me enough, you'll do this. If you love me enough, you'll prove it. But you can never prove it because there's this black hole. You'll never be good enough. You can never prove enough. You know, it's this constant black hole of gaslighting. So he's like emotionally spent. You see what's going on here? That's what's happening here. You know, he's constantly trying to prove himself, but he can never do it. He'll never be good enough. And yet she's taking away from his biggest night. She's ruining and tarnishing whenever it's possible for him to get attention. And boy, did she ever do that, because the night that should be his biggest night, where he was getting the Academy Award, she managed to tarnish, she managed to ruin for him. She was able to do that. And so I'm just saying, I want you all to see these signs. And the only way that you can turn this around, the only way you stop this, is realizing that it is a black hole that you can never fill. Because when a person has that emptiness inside of them, you can never fill that hole for them. It's inside of them. And so you have to be the one who's ready to heal. And so I want you to put that in the comments right now. I'm ready to heal. I'm ready to heal. And how you start that is you stop. You recognize that they are conditioning you. It's a black hole. You see what's happening. You have to realize when they're saying it, you know, if you loved me, you would do this. If you love me, you would do that. And that's what she's been doing with him. If you love me, you would protect me, but I don't need protecting. But I'm going to sabotage everything you're doing. And that's what's been happening. You know, he's probably very, very codependent too. And he needs to heal his own trauma. And hopefully he's doing that also. I'm so glad you're here, because today I'm going to be sharing with you 8 phrases that narcissists use to manipulate you, so that when you see it coming, you'll be able to spot it. You'll be able to turn it around. You're going to be able to start looking at it almost like as a third party and go, okay, got it. Now I see what you're up to. Now I see what you're trying to do. And by the way, because you're saying these things, I know that you're a narcissist. All right, so let's dive in. The first one is they'll say something like, I guess I'm a bad person. You know, you're trying to make a point about something. You're pointing out something like they didn't do something that they said they were going to do, or they did something that they shouldn't have. And you're just trying to get them to take responsibility. You're trying to have a conversation with them. And what they try to do then is they just become the victim. Oh, I guess I'm just a bad person. You're just attacking me. I guess I should just die. I should, you know, and instead of now having a conversation, you're the one who's attacking them. You should feel bad, especially if they're a covert narcissist. Then you might see tears starting to flow, something like that. If you want to know more about the covert passive aggressive narcissist, definitely check out my video on the covert passive aggressive narcissist. And I also have one on covert narcissists in relationships, because I really detest covert narcissists, because I had to deal with a couple of them in my own life. But the very first thing that they say is, I guess I'm a bad person. They shift it around. They make themselves the victim. All right. So that's number one. Number 2 is, do I still matter? You know, now we're not talking about the issue at hand. It's again, they're turning it around. They don't want to have to take responsibility for whatever it is that they should have done or didn't do, or did do and shouldn't have, or whatever it is. Or whatever it is that they said. Maybe you're hurt. Maybe you're upset about something. They don't want to have to be responsible for that. They don't want to have that light shining on themselves. So they will do whatever they need to get that off of themselves and move it to a different direction. And so another thing they'll say is, do I still matter? Is, you know, doesn't the relationship matter to you? Why are you doing this? Why are you bringing this up now? What is it that you need to do now about this? You know, and so, and instead of like actually addressing the issue, it becomes all about all of that stuff. However they can create noise around it, that's what they will do. Okay, so then the next one is, if that's the way you feel, you know, in other words, like, kind of diminishing your feelings, diminishing whatever it is that you're bringing up to them. I guess so, if that's the way you feel about it. And it might even be like in a mocking tone, it might be in a sarcastic tone. They're definitely letting you know that whatever it is that you're deciding to do is probably a terrible idea. They're very judgmental about it. They want you to feel bad about whatever it is that you're deciding to do. If that's the way you feel, okay. So, all right, the next one is, if you loved me, then if you love me, then you won't do this. If you love me, then you will do this. If it's in a business setting, if you valued the relationship, if you value working with me, then you wouldn't say this, you wouldn't do this, or you would do this, whatever it is that you want them to do. So that's another way of getting them to, or getting you to be manipulated by them. And if you have totally seen this before, give me an amen in the comments. Okay, so the next one is, you don't trust me. Again, this is a manipulation. They're doing something that you definitely don't trust them. And they're like, oh, you don't trust me. They're trying to make you feel bad. They're trying to make you feel guilty for not trusting them. How could you question them? They've always been there for you. They've always been by your side. Have they ever let you down? And of course you're thinking, yeah, you have. And yeah, I don't trust you. But, then they start playing on your emotions. They start playing on your feelings. And especially if you're an empath or you're an empathic person, it's really, really hard to stand back up to that. And if you want to know more about that symbiotic relationship between the narcissists and the empaths, definitely check out my video on that topic, because there is definitely sort of this, lethal attraction that goes on there between narcissists and empaths. But anyway, that's the next one. You don't trust me. All right. So the next one is, I've never seen anything this bad before. I've never seen anyone do anything like this before. Trying to make you feel like you're the only one who's ever asked this, done this, said this, whatever it is. And if you want to know more about that, definitely check out my video on Narcissist favorite sayings. But that is something that they do as well, to try to manipulate you. I've never seen this. I've never done this. I've never seen anyone, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the next one is, we talked about. This is a really, really famous one. It's a gaslighting type of a phrase that a lot of covert narcissists especially use. We talked about that. Don't you remember? You agreed. And you never had that conversation before, you never agreed to anything, but after a while they prey on your sanity, and then you start to question your sanity. Well, maybe we did talk about that, I don't even remember now. But that's what they do. They that's how they manipulate that and eventually, because they've messed with your mind so much, they start to have power and control over you. But once you start to see it and you start to notice it, then it'll stop, and you'll start to realize what's actually going on, and you're waking up, because that's why you're here, right? Okay. And the last one is, I would never, trying to shame you. I would never do this. I would never say that. I would never let you down like that. I would never accuse you of anything. I would never talk to my friends about you. All those sorts of things, even though they definitely would. But that's one of the things that they say is, I would never. So that's one of the other manipulation phrases that narcissists use. They love to manipulate. And so what do you have to do in response? You have to ethically manipulate the manipulator right back. And that's what I teach you how to do. I have heard it all when helping people negotiate with narcissists and break free from these toxic relationships. And they say the same things over and over again. The thing about narcissists is that they do have a pattern of how they speak. And that's the good news. I mean, the bad news is that it is so, so difficult to deal with them. But the good news is that there is a pattern in dealing with them. And so if you're kind of wondering, am I dealing with a narcissist? Is it true? Is this person that I'm trying to manage, communicate with, negotiate with a narcissist? Well, check out this video and you'll know by the end of this video. And make sure you watch all the way to the end, because I do have 7 different phrases here, and all of them taken together are, kind of a checklist for you. So you can kind of see, taken together, is this person a narcissist that I'm dealing with? Okay. And as I said, I've helped millions of people through this channel, thousands of people through my practice in coaching people through negotiations, through my law practice. So I definitely have seen it all. Believe me. All right. So number 1 is you make such a big deal out of everything. This is really a form of gaslighting. And gaslighting is a way of making people feel like they're crazy. It's a form of control. It's a form of destabilizing people. It's really a way of getting a narcissist victim to believe that they don't have power. And so it's something that narcissists use to make their victims feel confused. So you make such a big deal out of everything. That's number 1. Number 2, this is really from a male to a female. Okay. And this is it your time of the month? I know it is so misogynistic. It's so degrading. It's so devaluing. And it really is just so meant to be, I'm not giving any credence to what you're saying. I'm totally going to just devalue whatever it is that just came out of your mouth, because I'm just going to say, oh, is it your time of the month? That's number 2. Number 3 is other people's wives or husbands think blah, 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 other people's spouses, or in this same vein, it's even so-and-so agrees with me. This is all in the same line of everyone else thinks, everyone else believes, or no one else thinks. It's a way of making you feel isolated. It's a way of making you feel like you're the only one who thinks this, or no one else thinks that. And it's actually also part of almost like a smear campaign that has started as well, because in that, they also maybe have started to speak about you to these people. And during the discard phase, you do see the birth of the smear campaign as well. And I do have a whole video on how to shut down the narcissist smear campaign, which I highly recommend that you check out, because sometimes the smear campaign can actually start long before you even know the discard phase has started, where they started planting seeds long before. They started saying things about you long before that aren't even necessarily where I'm saying something bad about the person. They couch it in terms of concern. A lot of times I'm concerned about this person's parenting skills. I'm concerned about this person's drinking. I'm concerned about how much this person is working. I'm concerned about their long hours. I'm concerned about how much time they spend away from home, something like that, where it's a backhanded smear. And so then by the time the discard phase comes along, they can say, oh, I told you, that they spend so much time away. So that by the time it comes time to go into a custody phase or something like that, they can say, oh, I told you that they were never around, or I told you they were a terrible parent, or whatever. Even so-and-so agrees with me that you were never around and that you're a terrible parent. Everyone else thinks that you're horrible. No one else thinks that you should have custody, something like that. And so, everyone else believes this or that. And, they do the same thing even in a workplace setting. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a marriage. It can be a workplace setting too. They do the same thing. So no one else thinks that you should get this promotion. No one else thinks that you're good at sales. No one else thinks that you are very good at this job. And everyone else thinks that I'm better at it. That sort of thing. I mean, it's the same principle. You can take this same principle and apply it across the board to whatever it is that we're talking about. So that's number 3. Number 4 is, why are you bringing this up now? So what they do is they take whatever it is that you are trying to bring up and they attack what you're talking about. They attack your tone, the timing, when you're bringing it up, where you're bringing it up, so that you never get to bring up the topic of what you're bringing up, so that you're never heard, because then you feel totally frustrated. You never feel like you matter then. It's a way of devaluing you. It's a way of disrespecting you. If you think that this is so true so far, put "so true" in the comments. Another one that they'll say is, I don't like your tone. I don't like your body language. I don't like how you're standing. I don't like your posture. Again, it's something else to attack so that you never get to the point of what it is that you're saying. And number 6 is, you're so ungrateful, or some derivation thereof. You're so unappreciative. You don't know how good you have it. Something like that. It's always something around how great they've been to you and how much you don't appreciate how good they are, and something to make you feel guilty. And especially if you are trying to ask for something from them, you are trying to get them to be held accountable for something, you're trying to hold them responsible for something, or you're even asking for them to acknowledge you or acknowledge your feelings, even not holding them accountable, even just acknowledge you in any way. That's when you're ungrateful, you're unappreciative, you don't know how good you have it. All of those things, they become a victim. They become a victim. Somehow it gets turned around back onto them. So that's number 6. And number 7 is, you can never let anything go. You can never let anything go. Or, can't we just move on? You're always starting problems. Can't we just move on? Why do we have to think about this? Why do we have to dwell on things? If you want to try to bring up anything that's an issue, then the next thing that they want to do is just forget about it, move on. Let's just sweep it under the rug. Let's just move on. Let's just get to the next level. You'll see, it'll all be better. And just basically future fake you. You'll see, it'll all be better. And why do we have to dwell on things? Okay, great. I already said it would be better in the future. Let's just move on. You got what you wanted. I said, fine. Okay, it'll be better in the future. From now on, you'll see, it'll be amazing. And they don't want to hear anything more about it. And, they just try to love bomb their way into saying the rest of the time it'll be incredible, and they just want to focus on that. And they don't want to hear anything more about you, your feelings, how they may have hurt you. They just want to think about the future. They want you to think about the future because they don't want to have to be, held accountable at all. They don't want to be held accountable. They want to be held responsible. And they really believe that if they can just get you to think about the future, that you'll just forget about it too, that they can just love bomb you back into thinking about the future, and that you'll just forget about it, and that everybody can just move on. And then they won't have to be held responsible for it, that they can just charm you with their charisma the way they did in the beginning, and you'll just move forward. And, they don't care about your feelings anyway. So what difference does it make? They just want what they want. They want you to be pushing your feelings back into their direction. They don't want to have to spend any time giving anything into your direction. Let's talk about those stealth ways that narcissists control conversations. Now, they're always trying to control you, right? They are manipulative by nature. But what are the ways that are really kind of stealthy, more secretive, more underhanded, that they're trying to control conversations? The ways that, aren't as obvious that they're doing this. And you're trying to be over there nice. You're trying to be the good person. The fact that you're in a relationship with a narcissist probably means that you are a good person. Whether it's a business relationship, workplace, friendship, romantic relationship, a lot of times you're trying to be polite. You're trying to be the one who takes the higher road. And you're thinking, I don't know, what should I do here? So I just want to bring this up so that it makes it a little bit easier for you to recognize when these things happen. And you can go, oh, you know what? I knew that this was something. I knew that this was going on. Let's talk about number one. Number one is they all of a sudden start going, oh, I can't believe that you would bring this up. And after all that I've done for you, I just tried to be a good mother. I just wanted to do something good for you. I really just wanted to you to have some support. All of a sudden, it's the guilt trip. All right. So number one is it's stealthy because it doesn't seem like controlling the conversation, but this is where they become the victim. Most of the time where people think, oh, they're trying to control the conversation, where they actually are doing something to you, stealthier, because they've become the victim in this. They've turned themselves into that victim. Oh my gosh, I was just trying to do something good for you. And I was just trying to support you in that. And so all of a sudden it's been turned around like that. And now you're taking care of them. Oh, I know that you were doing that. I know that that's what you meant to do. I wasn't trying to attack you. I wasn't meaning to bring you any harm. And now they've taken back control of the conversation. You see how stealth that was? That's what happened there. And now you haven't been able to talk about anything. Number two is they changed the topic. So you are talking about something that happened. I had an interesting thing happen today. I was just leaving this appointment, and I ended up finding out this thing from, I I was at the dentist today, and the dentist was telling me all about blah, 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 whatever. Then all of a sudden, the person will say, I thought that you didn't really have time to talk to anybody when you were at the dentist. And now you're talking about that instead of what you wanted to talk about, which was the conversation that you actually had with the dentist. They changed the topic. Now you're having to defend yourself about, I thought you didn't really have time to talk to anybody when you were at the dentist. I thought you were in and out. I thought that you said that you were in a rush over there. And now you're defending yourself about the whole situation at the dentist instead of actually talking about what it was that you wanted to talk about. And so they've completely just changed the topic, and you never really get back to what it was that you wanted to talk about. So they've just hijacked the conversation completely. That's another way that they control the conversation. They start questioning another portion of what it is that you're talking about, and then you end up talking about that instead of what it was that you really wanted to talk about in the first place. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3 is they start raising their voice. They start to raise their voice, and you start to go, why are you raising your voice? And they'll deny that they're raising their voice, and you'll say, you are. And why are you angry? You seem angry. No, I'm not. And then you get into a whole thing around that instead of what it is that you wanted to actually talk about. Again, a way to hijack conversations. It's very, very stealth, but they will do that. Okay, so that's another way to control conversations. It's very, very stealth, but it's, again, a way to control conversations. So that's number 4. Number 5 is they will interrupt you. They will say, you'll be trying to tell them what it is that you want to tell them, especially if it's something that is really, really important to you. Anything that's important to you, something that is around your work, something that's around your needs, something that's going on with somebody in your family. I mean, anything has anything to do with anything else other than them that they don't want to have to hear about, then they'll just start interrupting. They'll be like, can we talk about this later? I'm trying to hear you, but why are you talking about this at this moment? I can't hear you right now. That the radio is too loud. Just the way you're saying this, you're not making any sense. Who's that now? And they just interrupt everything that you're saying so that the flow of the kinds of things that you're saying, you end up losing flow. Oh, that's not the thing that you just said. I couldn't follow you. Oh, now you're attacking me. No, I didn't attack you. Oh, yes, you actually did. And then you end up fighting about that. And then, so then the whole thing ends up being completely derailed again, because the whole point of everything is derailing the conversation. They want to make sure that the conversation gets hacked, gets derailed, gets controlled. And it's also, again, very stealth, because as long as when you try to get them back on track and you say, hey, listen, we never get to the point of my conversation, they'll completely deny it. And they'll say, it's, your fault. You had a problem delivering it. I was here. I was trying to listen. You just never got to the point. You were the one who didn't tell me what it was. I was sitting right here. I was sitting here the whole time. You were the one who didn't finish the sentence. You were the one that kept interrupting me. What was your problem? You're the one that started raising your voice. The whole thing, that it'll all be your fault that you just couldn't get to the finish. You just couldn't figure out a way to deliver the content to them. So that's the next one. By the way, you totally deserve better. You totally deserve better. You totally deserve respect. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. I deserve respect. This is not how normal people have conversations. This is not a regular thing. And you know this because when you have conversations with regular people have a back and forth. They will talk to each other like regular people. I mean, they don't have this constant back and forth discussions like this. And another stealth way that a narcissist will try to control a conversation is that they will act like they don't understand what it is that you're talking about. They'll just feign misunderstanding. I don't understand what it is that you're talking about. I don't remember. I have no clue. That doesn't make any sense to me. We're going to have to talk about this later. You know, they'll just basically then just get up and leave. They'll just stop the conversation altogether. Basically just end the conversation. You just terminate it because they don't understand it. And so they'll just abort the conversation completely because they'll just lose interest and start talking to somebody else. And so you'll just be done. So that's the next one. And then finally, the last one is just ignore you completely. And that's another way to control conversations. And you'll see this specifically in text messages or emails. And it's a really interesting thing because a lot of times the way you see this show up is they will send you a text that's extremely inflammatory. Why are you at this person's house? Or something to that effect. Or what's going on with this? And they'll screenshot something and send it to you like right in the middle of a meeting that they know is really, really important to you, or something is happening. And then you'll immediately write back going, you know that this is blah, 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 blah. And you know they're watching and you know they're reading it, or they even leave it on read or something like that, where it's like, you know that they've read it and they do not respond. They refuse to respond. To complete silent treatment, complete ghosting. Another way to control you, another way to control conversations, extremely stealth. And then, you know, what can you do? You can't do anything about it, especially if they know that you're stuck like at work or in a place where, you know, you can't get to them or you can't do anything about it for a period of time. It's the worst because they know that you are going crazy. So let's first talk about how narcissists get started with this taking control of a victim or a target in the first place. How does it happen? How do they start the pattern of control?
You know, I think a lot has to do with narcissists are very often charming and they light up that room. It's all about them when they walk into the room, and everything around them is attracted to them for a period of time, right? Until you start to be gaslit essentially by the narcissist. That is the attraction of the narcissist. And when people come to me and they're married to a narcissist, not only are they thinking about how did it happen to them, but they're worried, frankly, that it's going to happen to me as their attorney. How will I be trapped into their narcissistic web, essentially? And will I be able to climb out of that? And will I be able to protect and advocate for them because they have had that experience of being in that trap, essentially? So I think that that's the main issue.
Yeah, that's so true. I've heard that so many times as an attorney too, like, oh, they're going to work their wiles on you, they're going to charm you. I've heard that too. But I think a lot of times how it starts too is, I'll take care of you. You don't need to keep that job. Go ahead and quit your job. I'll take care of you. or something like that will start to happen, right?
It's that isolation that you're talking about. Yes, absolutely, because they are the magnet and they are the one, and they are going to essentially be the one who's going to be able to care for you, take care of you, be the one to protect you. And all of a sudden, they are essentially the only person that you have now in your life because you have become so isolated from everyone else. And that becomes one of the problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it happen in that way. So, I'll take care of you, quit your job, and so therefore, now you've cut off all of these other ways of having money. I mean, and I've seen it where a person had permanent alimony from a previous marriage, and so now they've gotten rid of that source, and now they are completely financially dependent on this other person, and now they are getting divorced from this person and they're out of luck, or they have given up a really, really good job or a great career, and it's now 10, 15, 20 years later, and they're much, much older, and they really can't go back to that particular job anymore, right? I mean,
Right.
that's another way of happening. Another thing that I have seen is that they will say something like, you pay all the expenses for the house, or something like that, and I'll put the money in savings or something. I'll save my money, and you use all your money for the expenses, or something to that effect, right?
Yes, we see that so much. I mean, look, I think that that's a very strong form of financial abuse that we see all the time. I think that there are so many people who come to us who have been financially abused and who are dependent on this person, not necessarily because they're not earning, because sometimes they may be the earners, actually, and they are literally handing over their paycheck or giving over their savings to this other person, right? This spouse who says, I'm going to control the finances. I don't worry, I'm going to take care of that. And I'm now going to be essentially doling out an allowance to you. And it's not unusual for us to see the actual breadwinner in that situation. And, yes, we definitely see the situation where people come to us and they've been out of the workforce for 10, 15, 20 years sometimes, right? And they've given up their capacity essentially to earn. And that is extremely problematic because recovering those years is almost an impossibility. It's almost an impossibility. You cannot do it. You are not going to have that incline, right, of being able to move up the ladder in the same way that had you stayed in the workforce, you would be able to. But I think what is even more disturbing is when the person who is earning the money is now in essentially a lack of control of that money because they have literally handed over the paycheck and they are literally paying all the expenses and getting that allowance of what someone else thinks that they should get.
Yeah, and they don't know what has happened with their money, and so what's happened is that person has put all of their money into either savings or something, but they don't know where it went.
And
Right.
it may not be titled in their name, right? So one of the things that often happens and we see is that one party has complete and total control. They have control of the passwords. They have control of the account. They literally have cut off all of your sources of income. And although you either earned it or you certainly were part of it in terms of supporting the marriage and supporting the person who's going out and earning it, you now have no resources to actually be able to get out of the situation. And there may be a lot of resources available, but you don't have them available to you. And that's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the sneaky ways that narcissists control you. I've seen it. For years and years, I practiced law and I didn't see it. I didn't know how, narcissists operate. I didn't really understand this, even as a lawyer. It was really not until I dealt with it as somebody who was in a partnership with somebody in a business endeavor, separate and apart from my law practice, that I really started to dive into learning about narcissists. And I had been lecturing all over the country on negotiation. I had even written a book on negotiation, and I had been a keynote speaker at an American Bar Association event, and all of this on negotiation. But I sure as heck didn't know that much about narcissism, and I didn't know the sneaky ways that narcissists control you. And that's why the majority of attorneys in this country really don't understand narcissism. And it really wasn't until I realized I was dealing with a narcissist myself in a business situation that I really started to dive into learning about narcissism and reading a lot of books on narcissism. And that's when I started to apply what I was learning about narcissism to some of my cases when I was still practicing full on. And that's when I started to see real movement in how to deal with narcissists. And now I coach people on how to deal with narcissists. And I've come up with a whole program, Slayer Negotiation with a Narcissist. That's when I really started to learn how to deal with narcissists in a really powerful way. I know the sneaky ways that narcissists control you. So one of the things that they do is they confuse the issues. They start talking about other things when you want to talk about something else. So one of the things that they'll do is, you'll say, hey, I want to talk to you about these text messages or something like that, and they'll say, why are you bringing that up now? Well, I just wanted to talk to you about these text messages, bringing that up now because you make it difficult for me. And you know how stressed I am about work, and I'm dealing with my sickness right now. And you know that I was sick last week, and I'm dealing with the stress of this, and all these other things. Oh, and you're yelling at me, and the neighbors can hear us, and then all of a sudden it's about all these other different things, and you never get to talk about what it is that you wanted to talk about. They confuse the issues. Okay. So that's a sneaky way that they control you. All right. So that's number one. They confuse the issues. Number two is they look for your weaknesses and then they use those against you. They know exactly what it is that your Achilles heels are, what your weaknesses are. And especially the deeper you get into having a personal relationship with them, the longer that they know you, they'll start to say things that they know are your weaknesses against you. They'll say things like, well, you're not very good at that anyway, or like just little passive aggressive things that you'll be like, whoa, where did that come from? That person probably isn't getting along with you because you're not very good at getting along with people, or something like that. And probably because of the issues that you had with your mother, and that's why you don't get along well with people, or something like that. And it's like, what, just things like that they know will be hurtful to you, that sort of thing. So that's number two. Number three is gaslighting. All of narcissists use gaslighting to confuse you, to control you. And it's a very, very sneaky way to control you and try to confuse you, to make you think that you're crazy. And gaslighting, there's so many different forms of gaslighting, but it's a way of destabilizing you. It's a way of making you think that you're crazy. It's a way of making you think that your reality is not your reality. So I do have a whole video on narcissistic gaslighting phrases. But, in short, it's basically a very brief explanation is something like, I'm going away next weekend. Oh, you're going away next weekend? I didn't know you were going away. Oh, yeah, we talked about that and you agreed. Don't you remember? We never talked about that. Oh, yeah, we had a whole conversation about it and you agreed. We never talked about that. Oh, yeah, we did. And you never had that conversation, but they'll swear that you had that conversation. And, they'll say things like that so many times. And then you start to question your reality. Like, maybe we did have that conversation. And, that's the kind of thing that they'll do. Or, you'll see a text message that's very, very suggestive with a coworker and, at night or something like that, or love you and, that sort of thing. And they'll say, that's not what you're seeing. You're so needy. You're very paranoid. We're just friends, and make you think like you're the one who's crazy, that sort of thing. Number 4 sneaky way that narcissists control you is they become the victim by turning the tables. They do something wrong. And so, you question them on it. Like I had somebody who was a professional, somebody who used to work with me, and you would ask them about something that they were supposed to be doing. And then suddenly it was, that I had breast cancer 10 years ago. And, this is very stressful for me. And, and it became about that and not about the fact that they didn't do their work. And so now you're supposed to feel bad for bringing up the fact that they didn't do their work because they had breast cancer 10 years ago, and they become the victim. They turn the tables. So that's another way that sneaky ways that narcissists try to control you. Another way that narcissists try to control you is by shock and awe, like becoming very dramatic. They start to yell, they start to throw things, they wake you up in the middle of the night to have a fight with you. They throw on the lights, they might throw something, at the wall. They try to control you like that by becoming very, very dramatic. And, I had a slay client that I just interviewed, Shikati, who you should definitely listen to his interview on the podcast and also video here, where he talked about how he had actually like PTSD after getting out of the narcissistic relationship, because the narcissist that he was in relationship with used to throw on the lights in the middle of the night and, start to have fights with him in the middle of the night. That's the kind of thing they do. Shock and awe by becoming super dramatic. That's a way to control you, to bring you to your knees like that. So that's another one. Another one is these hot and cold games that they play. They start off with the love bombing, and you're the most amazing, incredible, special human being they've ever met. They sweep you off your feet. They rock your world. You are amazing, and huge gestures, and lock you in as quickly as possible. And you're like, wow. And then all of a sudden ghost you, and they don't respond to text messages, and days may go by. And then all of a sudden, like, you're so needy. What's up with you? I have to work. And, like these hot and cold games, that they play. And that's a way of controlling you. So that's another one. Another one that they do is use guilt, try to guilt you, so especially around holidays, or, this is a really biggie for covert narcissists. And I have a whole video on covert narcissism in relationships. Definitely check that out. And I dealt with a covert narcissist myself. So I know 8 ways to outsmart that controlling narcissist. By the way, I have a brand new book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with Narcissists and Win. It is literally in pre-order right now. I have tons of free bonuses for you. Go to slaythebully.com, grab it. All right. Number one, what's the one thing they want you to do? What's the one thing they want you to do? They want you to take their bait. Why do they want you to do that? Well, because they go fishing. Boom. Reel you in. So don't take their bait. Okay? Do not take their bait. Why do they want you to take their bait? Because then they feed their ego. They feed that need inside of them for supply. So remember, they don't feel inside like they have any value. They literally have to get all of their value from external sources. So yes, it's how they look to the world. Yes, it's ego. Yes, it's winning. Yes, it's adulation. Yes, it's all of those things. But it's also by controlling people, debasing people, degrading people, manipulating people. That's also a form of supply for them. So when you take their bait, when they throw things out there to try to trigger you, that gives them a high. It literally, they get off on that. So when they send you these long emails, these long texts, these long things, or something through their attorney, or something that they know that is going to trigger you, and you go right in with them, they've really got exactly what they want. And then now you're sucked into the mud, you're sucked into the quicksand with them. But it's even worse than that. Because not only are you giving them narcissistic supply, number one, you're giving them what they want, but number two, they use your emotional reaction against you. So if you are in any kind of a situation where either you are in a potential court case or negotiations of any sort, or you could be down the road ever, they will use it against you, okay? They will say, look, there's the crazy one. They sit over there, calm, cool, collected, not one bead of sweat has ever touched their brow, and you look like the crazy person. And they use your reactions against you. One of the greatest examples of this is in the mini series, I Care a Lot. I did a whole video on this, where the woman who was the caregiver of these elderly people went up to the other woman, the elderly woman, and whispered in her ear while the camera was playing. She would get these elderly people to become like her wards, right? So if she was their guardian, then she would get control of their money, and she would basically take their money, right? And so she would get them in front of the judge and have them declared incompetent. She would put them into these nursing home facilities, and she would get control of their money. So when there was a hearing coming up for this woman's capacity in front of this camera, she whispered in front of the camera all sorts of things to get her upset. I'm going to do this, you're this, all sorts of things, whispering quietly. And the woman went nuts in front of the camera and looked like crazy person, insane person who basically needed a straitjacket, needed to be restrained. The other woman, the caregiver person, was like, oh my gosh, look at that. Wow. Ugh, it's terrible. This crazy old elderly person who is obviously doesn't have her capacity. So she literally took her bait, hook, line, and sinker. And that's what happens with narcissists. So, and I did a video on that, which you can check out if you'd like, but that's what they do. And it doesn't have to be in that kind of situation. They can say, you're a deadbeat dad or a horrible mother, and you can sit there and say, what are you talking about? I just picked them up from school, I just fed them their snacks, I just took them to baseball, or whatever. Are you kidding me? I just paid child support, whatever it is. And then you're down into it and you're in the thick of it and you're in it. Don't take that bait, because you don't need to prove anything to them. They are not the judge. They are not the jury. Okay. They are not the person you need to prove anything to. So who cares what they say? Don't take their bait. That's number one. Number two, don't engage in conversation with them or in any conversations that are emotional or argumentative, or any conversations about the past. This is another way to not take the bait, but really to outsmart that controlling narcissist. Because again, they're going to try to drag you into these things, but don't talk about the past, because that's something else that they're going to do. They're going to get you to talk about something that happened 20 years ago, if they can, especially if you're trying to call them onto the carpet about something that happened now. If you are going to get them to be held responsible for something today, they will definitely try to project and deflect about anything else, because they don't want to be held responsible for something that's going on now. So they're going to try to do anything they can to get that conversation off of that. So don't engage in that. Don't start getting argumentative. Don't get emotional. By the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists, which you can download. It's totally free. Go to disarmthenarc.com. Highly recommend that you grab that. Disarmthenarc.com. Don't engage. Don't get emotional. Don't get argumentative with them. Total waste of time. You're not going to convince them of anything. They're not going to go, oh, you know what? I get it now. I see what you're saying. Oh, yes. Now, you know what? I was wrong. They're not doing that. So what are you doing? Just stop. Stop yourself. All right. Set boundaries. Stick to them. That's the next one. Set boundaries. Stick to them. You know what I say? Step one, don't run. Step two, make a U-turn. Step three, break free. Remember what's negotiable. Contracts, issues, terms. You know what's not negotiable? Your self-worth, your self-esteem. All right? So step one, don't run. That's where you're putting your boundaries into place. Step two, make a U-turn. Step three, break free. Okay? Avoid confrontation as much as possible. All right. Next one. Don't try to change them. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to change what their beliefs are. Don't try to get them to acknowledge anything you did or anything that, your accomplishments. Any kind of conversation like that is a waste of your time, your energy, your good life on this earth, your breath. All of that creative, wonderful energy that you have is just better spent doing other things on this planet. You can say things to them like, I agree, that's what you think. Or you can say things to them like, that's an interesting perspective. Just say things like that just to keep things flowing. The next one is, remember that your self-worth, who you are, has absolutely nothing to do with them. You are whole and complete, and it has absolutely a separate value from who they are. Your self-worth does not depend on what they say, what they do. And the more time that you spend giving them and thinking about what they're doing is less time that you have to create and be the highest version of yourself. So, that was one of the massive, huge aha moments that I had when I was extricating myself from a narcissistic relationship. I realized that every moment that I was giving to this person, I was in victim mode. And so I needed to stop. So, do what you need to do to get out of that relationship, and think about it when you have to, when you're strategizing or creating your leverage or whatever. Remember my SLAY methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. So when you're thinking about it, think about it. But any other time, you got to be in create mode. Give yourself the gift of being the highest, best version of yourself. Think about something else that you can pivot to that is going to keep you in creation mode. Is it going to be writing that book that you've always wanted to write? Is it going to be helping people? Is it going to be coaching people? Is it going to be devoting your life to something that you've always wanted to devote your life to? Your children, is whatever it is, you got to pivot into something else, because your self-worth, all of that has nothing to do with them. They are broken people. And so however they've been toward you in the past has nothing to do with you. Okay. The way people treat other people is a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves, good or bad. They've treated you poorly because they don't feel good about the way they feel about themselves inside. So you can't take it personally. The next one is stay positive, stay upbeat around them. Let them know that you're like Teflon, just let it fly off. Or like a duck's back. It just, rolls off of you. Because as long as they think that that's what's happening, then they'll start to be disinterested, because you're not taking the bait anymore. You are calm. You're not emotional. You're happy. You're not interested in giving them supply anymore. And the less and less all of that is interacting, then they're going to be very much surprised. So step 1, don't run. Step 2, make that U-turn. Step 3, break free. So you're literally turning this around so that you're no longer backing away. You're no longer on the defensive. You're turning around. You're walking forward. You're now on the offensive. And that's how you start to stand in your power. And that's how you start to break free. So I want you to put in the comments right now, I can do this, because you can do this. You absolutely can. All right. The next one is you maintain your individuality, you maintain your independence. As you start to break free, as you start to become powerful, as you start to become confident, you will start to see yourself as separate. You will start to see yourself as something different, and you will start to see that power coming underneath you. That's when you start to see that wind coming underneath your wings. Be prepared for drama. Be prepared for manipulation, because they won't want to see that supply source coming away from them. Narcissists are always the worst right before they're ready to give up. It's like a toddler having a tantrum, I mean, it's as that baby is being kind of conditioned, they get worse and worse and worse. So be prepared for that drama, trauma, and chaos. But you can do this, right? You put that in the comments already, right? I can do this, because you can. All right. And lastly, get that professional help that you need, right? So you will need help. You will need support. You will need a support system. Make sure you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Join that. You will need help. You will need support. You will need a support system. You get professional therapy. If you don't have access to it, we do have a partnership with BetterHelp. You can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung and get that online support therapy if you need access to that. We receive commissions. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have the help and support that you need make sure you subscribe to this channel as well. We want you to make sure that you have everything that you need. I'm here providing free resources for you every day as an attorney, helping you negotiate with narcissists, helping you communicate with narcissists every single day. Remember that you have a voice. You have a voice. You have a right to have a voice. You have a right to speak your truth. So, hello, warriors of self-worth. Today's your day. Today's your day to have that compass in navigating the high conflict terrains. So we're going to delve deep in unearthing 5 potent responses to ensure that you're not just heard, but respected when standing up to narcissists. So let's arm ourselves with some strategy and understanding. So number 1, know your worth. So at the heart of our tactics, narcissists aim to chip away at your self-esteem with sly remarks or backhanded compliments. So like let's say it's your coworker. Oh, it's impressive how you manage even with your limited experience, right? Oh, you have limited experience. Like, oh, look at you. So rather than questioning your abilities, recognize your achievements and respond confidently. Every experience, long or short, has unique lessons. I stand by mine. Like that. See how it is? Like that. All right? Got it? You like it? If you like it, give me an I like it in the comments right now. All right. Number 2, respond, don't react. See, narcissists, they feed off of emotional outbursts. It grants them like this twisted sense of control. As soon as you go, like that, they're like, I did it. I got you. It makes them feel like now we're in it. Now we're doing something. All right. So, they got you all provoked, you overreact. And then they're like, oh, look at you. You're the emotional one. See? So instead of boiling over, inhale deeply and calmly and say, I value rational discussion. Let's communicate constructively. Like that. Got it? Number 3, clear boundaries. See, they often overstep. They mask their intrusions as helpful advice. Or let's just be frank. I'm just trying to help you. Like that. No, when a friend is offering unsolicited advice, can I give you some unsolicited advice on your personal choices? You just set the boundary and you say, I value our friendship, but I need you to trust my decisions. See, there you go. No more boundary. That's what a boundary looks like. Just imagine that boundary going around you like that. Power and control. Instant respect. Ready for some more? You're going to want to make sure you save this video. You're going to want to make sure you like it. You're going to want to make sure you share it. All right? So get ready. Number 4 is you're going to remember to avoid jade. Even though jade is great. I've got jade on. Jade is great. But in this context, you're going to want to make sure you avoid jade. 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 Justify, argue, defend, explain. Justify, argue, defend, explain. Perpetually on the defensive gives them the reins. You go, here you go. Here you go. I just handed you the reins. I just handed you control. Soon as you defend, you just hand them control. So, like, here's an example. Facing a relative's query like, why that job? The pay's not even that great. Instead of a lengthy justification, just say, it aligns with my goals. That's it. Just blank, that's it. You don't have to justify. No, justify, argue, defend, or explain. I always say, pretend like you're reporting the news, just the facts. It aligns with my goals. stand in your power. Got it? And by the way, if you need additional support, my Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. If you need additional therapy, betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. It's a sponsor for us. It gives us commissions, doesn't cost you any extra. We want you to have resources that you can trust. Okay? Ready for number 5? Educate yourself. Just like you're doing right now, which is good on you. You're here, you're doing the right thing. So good, so good, so good. Right? Know your worth. You know who you are. Remember what number 2 was? What was number 2? Respond, don't react. Know your worth. Respond, don't react. Number 3, clear boundaries. Number 4, jade. Avoid jade. Avoid, justify, argue, defend, explain, avoid. Just state the facts like that. And number 5 is educate yourself. Understanding their maneuvers allows you to counteract effectively. So, for example, when they're gaslighting you, you're imagining things like, I never said that. I don't remember that conversation. So with knowledge and strategies, you can just remember, like, I know I never had that conversation. Or you can start journaling. I always say you can follow up with conversations with email. This is just to confirm our conversation that we just had. We just talked about blah, blah, blah. And this is what was said. So mentally tagged without causing personal turmoil. Remember, just the facts. Just the facts. You don't need to add anything. You don't need to add anything. You don't need to add emotion. All right? So who can do this? You like this? Right? Put I like this in the comments, because you can do this. You can do hard things. Remember, they're difficult to deal with, easy to understand. And with the right tactics, with the right strategies and all the good things, you can do this. I've literally helped thousands of people with my slave programs. It does work, and you can do this too, right? So 5 must-know responses to take back your power and control against narcissists. Fight back for instant respect. They will back down. They're way more afraid of you than you are of them. I promise you that this is true. They're like the wizard from A Wizard of Oz, the big head, but they're actually the little scared guy behind the curtain. It is so true. I want you to know that I've got a powerful tool that can help you. It's phrases for disarming narcissists. Phrases for disarming narcissists is a powerful tool that you can use to have that upper hand in remaining in control, so that you can use it for communicating with narcissists, for emailing narcissists, for, when you're like, oh my God, you feel frozen. And so make sure that you grab those tools. You can go to disarmthenarc.com and get them. Make sure, trust me, it'll be a game changer for you. All right. So step 1 is recognize what's going on and then ground yourself. Remember, you're kind of like dealing with a toddler who's stuck in an adult body. So as soon as you see that a wall of text come in, or that wall of email come in, those long things, the thing you have to go hit see more, you go, oh my God, I know what they're doing. I see, you know what happens? They go fishing. They go fishing like that. And then they bait you, and then they trigger you, and then they reel you in, and they go, I got a live one over here. And so the very first step is just to step back and start to see them almost as if they're like a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. And just, this is like such a important first step, is start to just go almost like I almost say it's almost like a reporter, like reporting the news. Oh, I see what's happening here. I see what's going on. And probably the very first step, almost the very most important step, is to recognize what's happening and just see it. And I just say, like, put an emotional, like a boundary, like an invisible, like, almost like Teflon coming down around you, like that invisible boundary coming down around you. And it just, you just start to be like, I see what's happening, and just start to recognize it and see them for who they are, and recognize that, what they're trying to do to you. And when somebody tries to, trigger you, you just, okay, I see what's happening. I see it. And that your heart is racing, that fight or flight's happening, that sympathetic nervous system is kicking in. So you might start to sweat, your heart rate starts to raise, and your thoughts start to race. But at this moment, that's the moment that grounding yourself is so, so critical. Don't allow yourself to be baited. Don't allow yourself to be triggered, because this is when you might do something that they're going to use against you. Remember that everything that you write, everything that you do, all of these things are potential trial exhibits or potential things that they use against you at work. Oh, look, there's the crazy one. There's the person, right? And so your reaction is so important. You have a choice. You have a choice to respond, not react. You have a choice to observe. You can absorb, observe, not absorb, observe, not absorb, respond, don't react at that moment, right? So, and just remember, it's about them. It's not personal. Remember that people treat other people in the way that it's a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves. It never has anything to do with you. So, if you're in a meeting and, you're with somebody who is a high conflict individual, that they have narcissistic tendencies, and they go to undermine you, they go to try to trigger you. Instead of snapping back, instead of being triggered, take a deep breath. Remind yourself, this isn't about me. This is their issue. Their triggers are not your responsibility. And by doing so, just taking that one pause, that one breath, even that one moment where you just count 1,000, just, go, maybe it's more personal. Maybe they have a family member that makes snide remarks to them on a daily basis, or maybe they had a bad child, whatever it is. Just, you can make a choice in that moment. Instead of being sucked into their emotional vortex, their craziness, you can just take a look at them and say, I'm sure you're having a tough day, whatever. But you keep yourself firmly planted on the ground and just state facts. Do not defend yourself. I always say, do not defend. Never explain, justify, overshare. Do not defend yourself. When you defend yourself, you end up being sucked in, drawn in, pulled in. Once you do, you're down into the mud with them. You are in it, right? So do not allow yourself to do that. So recognize and ground yourself is that first step. And then step 2, which I already started to talk about, just be calculated, thoughtful, controlled, and just recall that person who undermined you. Instead of counteracting, being defensive, just respond with a calm question. A lot of times, if you respond with a question, can you clarify that? Clarify what you meant by that. By doing so, you are taking control of the narrative and displaying emotional maturity. Clarify what you mean by that. And for the family member who gets crazy, you can just say, I appreciate your perspective, but I'm happy with my choices. Thank you for your feedback. It diffuses potential conflict. So remember, the first step is to just observe, take control of your emotions, recognize, ground yourself. You can see what's happening. Take that step back. You start to look at them as if they are a toddler having that tantrum on the floor. Emotional Teflon, put that invisible boundary down around you. I always say, then you become like Superman having the bullets off your chest, or Wonder Woman having the bullets off of your wrists. And you just start to see it. You have a shield and you're just smiling behind your shield. Oh, I see you. I remember having a family member one time who is now divorced from my other family member. And, this person was just wildly crazy and very, very triggered about all sorts of things. And came at me one time about something that was crazy. And, and I just remember saying to her, traveling with children can be extremely stressful. I just remember like deflecting it back onto her. And this was long before I knew anything about narcissism or about any of this. But I just remember instinctively saying something like, I'm sure traveling with children can be extremely stressful. Like just knowing that it had nothing to do with me and just not taking that personally. And that's the kind of thing that you can say, like just putting it back onto them. It has nothing to do with you. And just remaining very calm. And I remember when I said that to her, she just went back. She was so almost like stunned by that. It was almost like a deer with headlights, like, oh my God. And so she just stopped and went back on to her merry way and went on to somebody else because she was so stunned by that. It's almost like she didn't expect me to say that or do that because I didn't take it personally. Like, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. I didn't take the bait. So when this happens, if you just don't take the bait, if you don't take that trigger, if you don't allow yourself, if you just stay with like Teflon, grounded, recognize, grounded. So if you can do this, say, I can do this in the comments, right? So, we need to recognize this. We need to support ourselves. We can be non-reactive because let me tell you, Slayers, that I cannot stress enough how important it is to not give them that narcissistic supply that they so deeply crave, because when you give them that supply, that's when they keep coming around. That's when they keep coming back after you, right? So don't go give them that narcissistic supply, that thing that they keep wanting, because if you want to shut them down, you want to shut off that supply source, this is the first step to doing that, right? So you can do this. I've helped many, many people do it, and you can do it too.